Morning, everyone. Myself, Ram Christian. I'm from Welch Materials, and today we are discussing about use and maintenance of HPLC columns. HPLC columns is kind of heart of your HPLC system, you know. So, usage and proper maintenance of HPLC column is very important. So, here in this presentation, we will cover three main topics. First is reasons for the abnormal use of HPLC columns. Maybe some are intentional, some are unintentional, but we will cover all the parameters here, all the things here. Second is maintenance of HPLC column. And the third is the misunderstandings which we have while using the HPLC columns. There are quite a lot of misunderstandings, but major six misunderstandings we will cover over here. So let's come to the first part of the reasons for the abnormal use of HPLC columns. What are the reasons by which the HPLC columns get deteriorates very easily, or we don't get much of a lifetime, or we get some physical damages to the column? First of all, for usage of HPLC column, we need to know what the column is. This is an HPLC columns, which Welch HPLC columns. You can see the outer box, and there is an inner column which is always present inside the box. So here we have demonstrated a Velcrom C18 250 length, 4.6 ID, and 5 micron of column. Yeah. So this is the column just of physically looks like. We are going in deep into the column. This is the column tube where the silica matrix or packing material has been filled. Then this is an upper frit. You can see easily. I mean, it is a kind of frit cap which is installed over here. Yeah, many of the HPLC companies, other brand columns, they have only you know SS filter or frit only, which is just placed over it. But in Welch, particularly, we put a frit cap, and then it becomes very difficult to disturb the silica by any physical means. Then this is the column screw head, which is tightened over here from inside, and then this is the column plug, plastic plug, which is for plugging this end of the column. So this is more in depth of frit. This is the clear picture of frit. You can see this is a 0.22 micron silica mesh which we have made, and this is the column tube. Here the frit is placed, and then over that the column screw head is tightened. Now we are talking about the silica which is present inside the column. This is the material which is present inside the column. I mean, if we talk about, for example, 5 micron, to a naked eye, it will look like a powder, because to see 5 micron particles to a naked eye is impossible. So what we have done is we have taken the pictures by scanning electron microscope. So you can see the beads of silica. This is an Ultisil HPLC silica beads, which we use for making HPLC Ultisil or Ultimate HPLC columns. Here, the best part is if you talk about the particle size of Welch silica, which is, if we talk about 5 micron, it is very homogeneous. Whenever we talk about a 5 micron particle size, it is always the average mean particle size. There will be 3.5 micron particles as well, 3 micron particles as well, 4, 4.5, 5, 6, 7, even 7 micron particles. But the thing is, the average particle size is 5 micron, but it is always it is always a band. It's not a single particle size. So what we have done in Welch is we have narrowed down that band from 4 to 6 only. So the biggest will be 6 and the smallest will be 4. So what is the benefit of that? The benefit is that the packing gets very homogeneous, and the surface area required for interaction becomes very high, because that if the particles are of same size, then the void between the particles will be lesser, so the surface area will be more for the interaction of the analyte on the silica substrate. Now we're going to the physical and chemical properties of the column. These are the different physical and chemical properties. Physical properties means what is the length, what is the diameter, what is the particle size inside the column, the silica which we have filled inside, what is the particle size of that, what is the pore size inside that silica, and then what is the surface area which is available for the interaction. Then comes the chemical properties. The chemical properties comprises of what kind of matrix we have used, whether it is a silica matrix or a polymer based column, the base material basically. Then what kind of ligands we have attached there, whether it is a C18, C8 or CN, whatever kind of other kind of ligands which we have attached. Then comes the carbon loading. How much carbon loading is we have added in the column inside. So that depends. That gives you the hydrophobicity of the column. So the carbon loading, the bonding phase, end capping, the free selenol groups, whether they have been end capped or not. Then the pH of the column. These all are the chemical properties of a column. So to use a column, to use an HPLC column, there are some parameters which we have to take care, which comprises of, which tells you, or which you can say is the good habits of using a column, good usage habits. First of all, the preparation before use. The preparation before use is your buffers, your column temperature, your pH range of the buffers, organic phase, everything should be proper. Second is the column is properly installed and it is installed in the right direction. Then the pH of the buffer is correct or not. Then comes the column temperature. Column temperature is within the range of the column. Then the correct mobile phase composition, whether if it is a gradient flow, then the composition, if it is buffer and ACN, then whether we have used ACN or not, or if it is buffer or methanol and we have used methanol, or if it is an isocratic buffer, then the composition, the percentage composition of the premix is correct or not. Then the proper maintenance of the column. Are we maintaining a good column, washing protocols, and are we maintaining a good column logbooks where we can see how much injection it has given. Then comes the storage, how we are storing the column, whether if we want to use it for the next day, what are the solvents which we are using for washing of the column, and if we want to use it for we want to store it for 2 to 3 months, then what kind of samples, what kind of organic solvents we should use, or what kind of solvent we should use for the washing of the column. Then comes the clean sample. The sample should be clean, it should be properly filtered, it should not have any kind of particles inside. Then comes first of all, and this is installation of the column. The installation of the column, it should be properly installed in the direction of the flow, whatever but direction is mentioned on the column, it should be installed on that very same direction only. Yeah, it is always mentioned on the column what is the direction of the column. It is always mentioned. Yeah, it should be always in the direction of the flow from your pump to your column to your detector. Yeah, on the forward direction only. Then comes the fitting, the frits or the ferrules which we use to install the column inside the HPLC machine. If you see here clearly, the tubing should be appropriate. It should not be bigger in size or it should not be lesser in size. If the tubing is bigger in size, then the ferrule will not be properly tightened into the column screw head. Yeah, and then what it will does is it will definitely break or damage these screw threads, and maybe the possibility is that this ferrule gets stuck inside the column. So it should be optimum. It should not be bigger. And if it is small, then you can see it will be properly tightened inside the column, but there will be a dead volume here, which will definitely affect your chromatography. Let's take the first case where the column tubing is bigger. What the customers, we have got some complaints from the customers. What the customers have done here, when the column tubing is bigger and this ferrule has been stuck inside the column, either the customers, they have changed the over column head, the whole column head, or you can see they have forcefully taken out the tubing, and now the tubing is bent from here. This screw will not move forward and you have to cut short the tubing now from here so as to attach it again. Thirdly, they have taken the whole tubing from the system only. Now you have to replace the whole tubing along with the column. Yeah. Or in second instance, when the column has a dead volume here, When the tubing is shorter, definitely it will hamper your chromatography. You can see here, when there is no void volume, you can see the peaks, they are very sharp, they are very symmetrical. But once there is a void volume, void formation, outside 550 microliter of void volume, before the sample or analyte reaches inside the column, this is 50 microliter, then you can easily see the peaks are distorted. There's a tailing in every peak, and now there is a small, very small, you can see a hump in the baseline, which is not here. So it will definitely, hamper your chromatography. Installation is very, very important. The correct fitting is very important here. Secondly, we talk about columns. There are also guard columns which come to the picture. Guard columns also are installed before the column. The same theory goes there also. This is the connection tubing of guard column and the column. If there is some void formation or some problem with the fitting, definitely it will hamper your chromatography. You see, if there is a void volume here also, you know, or maybe here also, this is the difference which comes in the chromatography. This chromatography was taken when the guard column was fitted properly. It was installed properly. You can see peak number 12 and peak number 13. There's a base to base separation, and the peaks are quite beautiful. The peaks are sharp. But once there is a void formation, you can see there is no base to base separation between peak number 12 and 13. And now all the peaks are giving a lot of tailing here. So the installation should be properly taken care of. Or secondly, maybe it can happen that the guard column is your guard column is damaged. So you have to change the guard column rather than changing the whole column. So now comes the question, when we have to change the guard column. The guard column should always be changed after every 150 injections. See, you don't have to change the whole guard column. This is a column holder, and inside there's a guard cartridge, which is very economical. You have to change the guard cartridge after every 150 injections, or you have to change the guard cartridge after 1500 of column volumes is used for mobile kits. Here I'll tell you for 250 mm length, 4.6 mm ID column, the volume of a column is 3 ml. So if we talk about 1500 ml of 1500 column volume is 4500 ml, 4.5 liters of mobile phase when it is being used through the column, then we should change the guard column, or depending upon the chromatography also. If the efficiency decreases, yeah, more than 10%, or the pressure increases more than 10%, or you can say the resolution decreases more than 10%, definitely change the guard column. It's very must. Now, if you talk about HPLC columns, there are two questions which come into the mind. One is, once we have installed a column, its performance is bad in the beginning, but after certain time of usage or certain time, it gets more, the column performs better and better and better. And secondly, which is very more common, I mean, some column performance is good after installation, but over a period of time it becomes bad. Yeah. So we will discuss about both the instances. For the first instance, why it becomes bad and after it becomes very good after some usage. The best example is priming. Injection priming is very important when you are using every new experiment. See, why? Because what happens is, when we are giving the priming of the column, the buffers and aqueous and organic phase which we are using in that particular experiment, the column becomes friendly with them. The column becomes saturated with those buffers and organic parts, so that these parts get into the active sites of the column, and then the packing material or surface becomes ready for interaction for the analyte. Okay, most compounds, they have very small equilibrium time. Equilibrium time is the time they take to settle on the column and the time when they get out of the column. you know so if we properly prime the column, the equilibrium time becomes fixed or becomes constant, and so we get same RT after first injection only. So the RT will not be, will not change after 5 or 6 injections. So priming is always important. But here in this case, What more we have to do is when we are talking about basic compounds, when the pH of the buffer is high, we are working on high pH buffer, or the molecular weight of the analyte is large. So what we have to do, we have to give a bit more priming to the column, so that because of the conditions which are more harder than the normal conditions, the column takes more time to get to get familiar or friendly with these hard conditions. So for basic compounds or large molecular weight compound, give a bit longer conditioning to the column. Now, what we do is we always say that you always use a new column for method development of a new drug. Because what happens is, if you are using an old column, maybe I'm not saying yes, but maybe we have used in the past on the same column, we have used some low pH buffers. Low pH buffers, what they do is they hydrolyze the end cap material of the column. So once the end cap material of the column is hydrolyzed at low pH, the OH groups or selenol groups become available for the secondary interaction with the salt, with the analytes. Once it is, it becomes available, then definitely because of the secondary interactions, your RT will shift. It will go to a higher level, but when you will use the new column and reproduce the method, you will not get the same chromatography. Secondly, sometimes ion pair buffers are hydrophobic functional groups which are already present in our sample. Say, for example, in ointments or in syrups, the ointments have paraffins inside, and the syrups has sugars inside as a base material. They have a tendency to settle on the surface of the column. So what they do is they block the active sites of the column so that the effective length of the column decreases. So what will happen? You have used an old column, you have got an RT, but when you use the new column where all the active sites are available, definitely the RT will shift. So sometimes what happens is because of some wear and tears in the column, or maybe high pH or low pH, or some the samples which we are analyzing on a column, they have some hard dilution solvent, diluents. Then what it happens is they actually disturb the bed of the silica inside the column. So maybe some silica is dissolved, or maybe some silica is lost inside. There's a void formation, which always will hamper your chromatography. It will always change your chromatography. Second, the last is sometimes, I mean, when you're talking about reaction monitoring samples, what happens is these samples, they have some inorganic oxides, yeah, as a catalyst used in the reaction. Or sometimes they have ethers, which have same polarity of that of silica. So they, oxidize the silica material inside, and then what they does is they disturb the bed. So that also disturbs your chromatography as well. That is why we always say that you should use a new column for new method development. What will happen is, because once you use a new column, why we should use a new column? Because the usage of the old column, we don't know what has happened inside. Maybe there is a void formation, or maybe there is an oxidation of the silica, or maybe there are some surface changes. I mean, maybe there is something highly non-polar which is stuck inside. So what will happen? That deterioration of the column will lead to reduced in separation, because once there is some disturbance in the bed, definitely the effective bed length available for analyte will be lesser. Definitely that will the selectivity may change, and that definitely will you know will change your retention time. So that's why when we use the same experiment, once we have validated a method on an old column, we are using the same experiment and validating the method on a new column, definitely you will get difference in the chromatography. So rather than seeing all the other variables, maybe I mean we have to do a lot of diagnostic work on what happens in the chromatography. Maybe the new column is not working fine. So just to avoid these unnecessary practices, we always suggest you should go with new column only. Yeah. So now here, now premature deterioration, the first example, which we put forward two questions to you. The first question is, why the column performance is bad in the first instance, and then over a period of time the performance increases, the performance becomes good. So the best example is we have used a C8 column here. You can see the example we are giving here. We have used a C8 column. The temperature is 40 degrees. There is a gradient flow with methanol, water, and THF. We are using 3 variable gradient. Okay. The water or the buffer is 0.05 trifluoroacetic acid. There's a guard column which has been used. Analyte is a hindered amine. Try to understand here. It's an hindered amine which has been extracted from polymers. Yeah. Then it is dissolved in toluene and precipitated out in methanol. Yeah. So before injection, all the samples are filtered. Nitrogen chemiluminescence detector is used. What happened is after 50 injection, we lost all the peaks. So now what happens here is, why we lost all the peaks? There are two reasons. Either the peaks are stuck inside or the peaks are coming out at void volume. If the peaks are stuck inside, we have to flush the whole column so that we get everything out, so that the peak, the column as sites becomes active. Or second thing is, if we there are some inorganic impurities which are stuck inside the column, which are not allowing the your analyte, mean analyte to interact with the column. So that is why it is coming on void volume. So what we did is, here in this case, we flushed the column with a mixture of DCM and 0.2% trifluoroacetic acid. We get half the peaks. What happened here is, there was, if you see, there was extracted from polymer extract. What happened is, polymers are always non-polar. They interact with the non-polar sides of the column, so C8 in this case. What happened is, they interacted with there and they blocked all the active sites. Now the sample was, or the analytes were not interacting, and they were not, sticking in the column, and they were getting out on the void volume only. So then what we did, we flushed it with TFA, trifluoroacetic acid, and dichloromethane. We got 50% peak. Then we increased the strength of organic. We started using toluene also. Toluene and 2.2% trifluoroacetic acid, we got 100% of them. So what happens is, we have to see what kind of sample we are analyzing. It is not always the column performance is bad. Maybe there is something sticking inside the column. So what you see, because of too many impurities are stuck in the column, it will cause trouble, because there were too many polymer things which were polymers which were stuck inside the column. That is why we were not getting any peaks. So what happened is, in the beginning, after 50 injections, the performance of the column becomes bad. But then what we did is, we flushed it overnight. Then we got the very good chromatography after that. Second is activation or conditioning of the column, which is required for every column, whether it is stored for 2 to 3 months, or it has been stored for longer time, or it has been newly procured. Why activation or conditioning is, why we always say to condition the column before uses. What happens is, in terms of new column or in terms of old column, maybe because the column is stored for 2 to 3 months, it can be possible that the whole storage solvent which is inside the column has been evaporated, so the silica has dried up inside. Secondly, maybe due to transportation, maybe the silica has dried itself. So activate the column so that wet the silica material inside, so that it becomes easy for the column to perform. Second is, when we ship the column, new column, there are, maybe we are using some different shipping solvents. So to change the whole shipping solvent from inside to replace all the shipping solvent, we have to activate or condition the column. So it is always necessary to condition the column. Secondly, use of proper mobile phase. Preparation of mobile phase is very, very important. Everything, either it is buffer, or it is ion pair reagents, or it is the acids, or it is the water or organic part, it should be analytically pure. The organic solvent should be chromatographically pure. Water should be ultra pure. Buffer should be analytically pure. Everything. Mobile phase should be filtered before use, and mobile phase should be freshly prepared for every experiment. Don't go by naked eye experimentation that mobile phase containing organic solvent does not grow bacteria. Yes, it is totally understandable that inorganic bacteria do not grow, but organic solvents are always, volatile. They get evaporate and they may fill into the atmosphere, and maybe you can, come across a bigger problem than, just saving your mobile phone or your time. Second, the water is absolutely clean. The bacteria is so small sometimes it doesn't look to our naked eye that there is bacteria inside. But again, if it is old mobile phase, definitely it might choke the column also. So you can see we have done some experiments here, and we have taken some, normal waters. We have taken three different waters: triple distilled, milky water, and normal lab water, and we have seen the chromatography. You can see here the milky water, which we preferably say to use for analytical or HPLC experiments, can say the chromatography. Even the milky water has some amount of, impurities inside at 20214. You see the ghost fields here or baseline noise, which is here because of the milky water only. So if your impurity is 0.5%, it is coming here. You are not, sure whether it is an impurity or a baseline noise. So purity of the solvents or aqueous phase is very, very important. Similarly, see, this is a triple distilled water. You can see the impurities inside. And this is a normal typical lab water. So baseline noise can happen because of the, solvents. So we always suggest you to use the proper and analytically pure solvent. To take care of baseline noise, we have a very good product which is called Ghostbuster column. You can see here, we have done an experiment where we have used phosphoric acid and we have used ACN also. Ultrasil AQ is the column which we have used. We have used two Ghostbuster columns, Ghostbuster 2, 3.050 and 4.050. See, the red is without Ghostbuster. You can see the baseline noise here. Yeah. But after using the Ghostbuster 2, 4.050, you can see the smoothen of baseline. 3.050, it is more smooth than the 4.0 also. You can see there is a hump, but here there is no hump also. So as we have decreased the, the baseline noise, the chromatography will be more beautiful. Now comes to the, this is a gradient flow. When we are talking about isocratic flow, there are two ways we use an isocratic method. Either we use a premix method, or we use a, two different channels on a binary HPLC system to premix the aqueous and organic part inside the HPLC system. Yeah. So here you see these are the four ways which we are making a isocratic mobile phase. Here is methanol and water is 60 into 40, 500 ml. What we have done is we have taken a graduated 500 ml cylinder, 300 ml methanol we have put inside and 200 ml of water. Because the graduated cylinder we are using here, I mean, because of its error limits, it is quite possible that the quantity of methanol decreases and the quantity of water increases. So what it will do is elution capacity of the column will be weakened. Why? Because elution capacity is increased by increasing the organic inside. Yeah, because elution is directly proportional to how much quantity of organic we are putting inside the column, so that it detaches the analyte which is already stuck on the column surface, and it makes it come out of the column. Yeah. So in the second instance, we took the water first and then put the methanol. Now methanol quantity has increased and the elution capacity has increased. So with the RT which we are previously you were getting at 8 or 9, it may come at 7.5 or 8 also. Yeah. Or thirdly, the best way is to use two different cylinders, 300 ml of methanol in one and 200 ml of water in other, and then mix it. This is the best and most reasonable way. Fourth is the best way is to use two different, channels to pre-mix it inside the column, or use double pumps respectively, what we have written over here. So the making of mobile face is also very important. Just because there is slight change in the, aqueous to organic phase, your chromatography will change. And what happens is the scientist always thinks that, I have made the perfect solution. But again, the art is shifting. This is because of the column. It is not always because of the column. Second comes the pH of the mobile phase. The pH of the mobile space should never be, adjusted by putting organic solvent into it. So for example, you have made a premix and then you are adjusting the pH. That will never give you a correct pH. The always best way is to first adjust the pH of aqueous phase and then mix the organic phase into it. And it should be written properly to be understandable for each and every other scientist also who is going to work on that particular experiment in the future as well. You can see these are the two best correct expressions. you know Here it is easily understandable how to prepare a mobile phase, but it is a confusing expression. I don't know mean So if you see, methanol should always be written, or organic phase should always be written after the aqueous phase. This is the most correct expression. Yeah. Then comes the temperature. Column temperature is also a very important, thing to take care of while working. What happens is above 5 degree of room temperature to 40 degree is the optimum temperature where you won't get much of a, shift in the peaks or much of a RT shift. Good retention and reproducibility you will get in that particular range. We can increase the temperature to get good efficiency, but it should be gradual increase, not be abrupt increase. So for example, we are working on 30 degrees and abruptly we have increased the temperature by 45 degrees. It can disturb the silica from inside, by abrupt increase in the temperature. That will definitely hamper your chromatography. So it should be, you know, gradually increased, because when you increase this much of, abrupt temperature, what will happen? The viscosity of the mobile phase also will change. That will also, cause the effect on the retention time of the fluid. So it should be gradually increased, and it should be increased to a certain amount where you are getting more efficiency of the column. It is only to a certain amount, not always. It is not always correct that you will, improve your efficiency of the column by increasing the temperature every time. It's not always it happens. Increase the resolution, yes, by increasing the temperature. What we are doing is basically we are increasing the speed of mass transfer. Basically, the attachment and detachment of the analyte becomes fast from your column. It is attached and very quickly it gets detached. So by fast mass transfer we can increase the, you know increasing the fast sorry by increasing the temperature we can increase the resolution as well, but up to a certain extent, not much. What we have done in this case, we have done an experiment. We have taken a column, we have increased from 20 degree to 90 degree. We don't suggest you to increase the temperature to 90 degree, but for our experimental purpose, we have increased the temperature and we have definitely decreased the runtime. See here, in this experiment, we have started from 20 to 90 degree. So in 20 degrees, the salicylic acid was coming here. Once we changed it, you can see easily the salicylic acid came to from 4.5 to 3.8 or 3.9. Now, second thing is, if you see here, in the third experiment at 40 degrees, what happens is the salicylic acid is coming at before it approximately at 3. But here what is happening? The RT is the resolution, or you can say the selectivity is changing. At 20 degree, the 6 number peak was coming before salicylic acid. At 40 degree, the 6 number peak is coming after salicylic acid. So similarly, we have increased up to 60 degrees and finally to 90 degrees. So we have taken all the 6 peaks. We have a good resolution of all the 6 peaks within 2 minutes of runtime. Definitely, we can increase the, temperature and decrease the runtime, but up to certain extent. That is always there. Because in the next slide, if you see, increasing of temperature doesn't always help us. Here in this, up to certain extent, you can get a, benefits of increasing the temperature, not all. Next slide comes is the injection volume. So generally, the thumb rule in chromatography is the injection volume should be less than 20% of that total column volume. So for example, 250, 4.6, 250 mm, 4.6 mm column, the approximate volume is 3 ml. So the sample loading should be maximum of 600 microliter. That is maximum. We don't say that you use, it should always be lesser than 600 microliters. To get the best results, it should always be between 1 to 10% of the total column volume. So for example, for 3 ml, it should be 30 to 300 microliter, not more than that. You'll get the best results. You see here, up to from 2 to 5, uh, you know, column volume of the injection, you're getting the maximum resolution. Once we have started increasing the injection volume, you can see the decrease in the resolution. So 50 up to 50 column volumes when we are going, then that means the the resolution is almost zero. Next example, you can see here in this slide, you can easily see from 1% to 10% within this range, we are getting the maximum resolution efficiency of the column as well. Otherwise, if you go beyond 10%, definitely the efficiency decreases. And 1% to 1.1 to 1%, definitely there is a lot of better efficiency of the column. Yeah, the injection volume should not exceed 1% of the column volume. This is what we generally say. But maximum should be only 20%, but not more than that. See, next experiment, what we have done is we have increased the injection volume. We have kept the injection loading same. So, for example, 100 microliters, we have increased the volume. So you can see this is the target peak, 100 micrograms in 10 ml, 10 microliters, sorry. So you can see the resolution. We have increased the injection volume, you can see the decrease in resolution. Now here the resolution is totally gone, and you can easily see the efficiency also. See the peaks, they are very sharp. Here the peak is not that much sharp, here it has become a band only. So that is why we are saying, and in the next slide, I will show you how much sample we can load here. So it should be, the injection volume remains unchanged. Okay, we have dissolved 80% of acetonitrile aqueous solution. We have dissolved this sample, and you can see peak forwarding is there and increased overlap is always there. See, at 50 micrograms, this is the peaks. We have gradually increases from 4, the peak has come to 3.5, and now we are losing on our resolution as well. Here there is this much of resolution, we have started increasing, and you can see the overlapping has started taking place. Here also you can see. So we always say the appropriate amount of sample should be loaded in a column. The loading of sample depends upon the ID of the column. What ID we are using. In the next slide, I will show it to you what kind of ID column should have what kind of how much sample should be loaded on a different IDs. So for example, analytical column 4.6 mm ID, the sample loading is 0.1 to 1.5 mg, not more than that. That will give you an optimum chromatography and a beautiful chromatography. The efficiency will be maximum for the column. 3 mm, then the column, you can see the sample loading decreases. For 2.1 mm HPLC or UHPLC columns, the sample loading is still lesser. Microbore 1 mm ID column, it is 50 microgram maximum. For capillary column where the ID is 0.3, it is 10 microgram only. For nano column, it becomes more lesser. In bioanalytical, we use a lot of nano columns where the MS detector is used, because UV detector doesn't have the resolution for nanogram level. So we use HPLC upfront with MS detector. You can see nanogram of sample is loaded. Now we've increased the sample, the ID from 4.6 to 9.4 for SAMI per. It is 1 to 10 mg. The loading has suddenly increased. For 21.2, even we can load 250 mg of sample as well. So this is what this slide shows you, how we can check how much sample can be loaded on a column. It all depends upon the ID of the column. Now comes the second part.